going to go and focus on the world of narrative. We spent a lot of time with trailers and documentaries and a lot of sections of things. To give you a little bit of a background of kind of where I see things are at, I think there's a little bit of a revolution in content creation that's starting to happen. And basically I can give you some backstory on, well, first I'm going to tell you about generally how things are getting done in the world, and anyone can stop me if they don't see this as the way that things are. Which is essentially you have giant multi-million-dollar things that they just throw money at it, and basically at the end you have a film, and along the way in terms of some of these things, post-production and is largely completely separate from production. And I think this is maybe one of the biggest flaws in filmmaking. You have basically a glorified file copier called a DIT on set, who's basically taking files, putting them on a hard drive, and sending them somewhere where somebody in a lab is going to make dailies and make new files from your recently shot files. This could take any number of days, at which point these files are going to get sent somewhere else, probably to post, where an assistant editor is then going to go and apply metadata to these, etc., build and edit, and anywhere from 1 to 3 days after you've shot, you actually have an editor working on your footage. Additionally, there's a script supervisor on set who is keeping a written binder of all of the things that are happening on set. They're going to be sitting there and writing these things down, in many cases handwritten, and is then, at the end of the shoot, is going to walk back and hand the editor and say, here, use this while you edit. At which point the editor is going to take this binder, put it on the table next to the computer, and never open it again. This is largely the way filmmaking is done today, and it's mostly because that's how we do it. There's not really a good reason for that based on the tools anymore. And to give you some background over sort of some of my background is about 7, 8, I don't know, a bunch of years ago, I made a feature film called How I Got Lost, and produced and edited and did the color, and you know, we were maybe the first independent movie to shoot with the red camera, about build 15 on that. And if we were any smarter, we would have done some publicity about that fact, but we didn't know what we were doing. So anyway, we went and spent a bunch of money, shot over 2 time zones, 24 days, I think 60 locations, did everything wrong that you could possibly do, and came out with a movie that worked. And I was the DIT editor, colorist. I pretty much handled that whole pipeline, and we were in 4K, and essentially we were making this offline to online workflow where you would get these 4K red raw files, and then you would transcode these in Red Cine to ProRes. You would bring those into Final Cut 7. You'd edit. Then at a certain point, you would do this relink process, which gradually got better, but you had to somehow get into your original red raw files, and then you would have to go and match aspect ratio and all of these other things that were really not a lot of fun. But the key to takeaway to all of this is that you spent so much damn time on the technical side of things, where like you would spend months trying to figure out the math equation of like why your ProRes transcodes were not matching up to what actually was supposed to be looking. Then you've got to manage all of these resolutions and on down the line. I'm doing 4K, is it 2K DCI, or is it 1080, and how am I going to do that with the color correction? Am I going to grade the raw first and then reapply these color corrections? On and on down the line. None of these decisions had anything to do with the story. So basically, fast forward to a few months ago. In that time, I started a film collective called We Make Movies, and we went and developed our first television pilot. And on that pilot, we used a share station. This is our new product called the Jellyfish. And basically, this is shared storage on set, and here's what we did. We had a wardrobe person working as the script supervisor on set. They had a laptop. They were entering information into a Google document, which then we would export a CSV that would then get emailed to the assistant editor who was working on set, who had one computer connected to our mobile and would now be a Jellyfish, would be ingesting those red cards into there. While that's happening, he's using the existing footage to build out a Final Cut 10 library that is working from the original red raw files and the original audio files, and is building on set a library that I am currently using now in my edit as the editor. And in addition, we had our sound guy naming all of his components after each of the characters in the movie, or in the pilot, and so that when that would happen, we would take all of this information, we would use Kevin Bailey's Shot Notes X, he's over here, and basically we would take that metadata and we would map it to an XML so that all of the clips would get the metadata in. They would come into Final Cut 10 correctly named, and then what would happen is we would take an XML and go into Sync and Link, and that would batch sync all of my clips and send back a new XML into Final Cut 10. So I would have a fully synced with multicams Final Cut 10 library within 15 minutes of downloading my footage on set, at which point prep could begin, and by the end of the day I would have that day's library ready to go into an editor's library, where with 6K and 5K red raw, I'm able to fully start editing. And not only that, I have roles named after all of my components within my edit, so that when this goes out to Pro Tools at the end, I don't even have to tag my roles. Basically, they're already tagged for me, so all the components are going to automatically show up in Pro Tools like Charlie did with an AAF, and everyone's going to be like, wow, look how much time you spent on that, and I never had to touch it. And this is the sort of thing that you can do where when you don't have to deal with all of that stuff, I can now worry about my edit. And this can all start happening on set, and you can do this, and it's really not that expensive. And it's pretty lightweight. On-set posts can happen, and basically what I'm going to do is now take you through some of what I've been doing on this, and you guys can get a sense of like kind of what is possible. But 6K, 5K, red raw, not a big deal. So what we've got here is two libraries, and by the way, we're on the Jellyfish currently, so I'll just walk you through what that is real quick. So this is our Share Client app in terms of mounting the Jellyfish, and you can have two types of shares, which is either over NFS or SMB. You're going to keep your Final Cut 10 libraries on the Jellyfish on the NFS share. It needs to be run on NFS protocol. The Jellyfish is optimized to go really fast over 10 gig Ethernet. So basically you can do something like this, which is if we come into here, I go into projects, and the grid, 10, FCP Exchange. Basically, this is a 4K timeline, and I believe it's better performance.
C, a smoking bod, or D, even more money.
And that's a native 6K Dragon file that basically I'm playing back in its native timeline off of 5K iMac, okay? Now, when I go to proxy, and by the way, does everyone know how proxy works? I mean, I'm going to be kind of skipping around in terms of how I'm sort of showing things off, but basically what I've just done is I've now gone down to a half-res ProRes proxy file. Now, how many people are familiar with this little icon, the missing proxy? So this is something that is unique to the Share Station, or Jellyfish. And basically, if we go into the Share Client, and I go under Other here, there's Enable FCPX Library Proxy Relinking. So basically, I hit this button. I go find a library that I want to do this for. I'm going to select this one. I've already transcoded these, but because I moved this, we're working on this from our indie server in the lab. But I put this on the Jellyfish to bring in here today. But of course, as everyone knows, when you move that and you move your proxies, you can no longer relink to them. unless you had a tool that could do something like that. So basically I would select this library, and then I would simply come back in here, and if I now, let's see, this is scene 15. So I've got a lot of these that are missing proxies. I'm going to go and select all, transcode media, create proxy, and if we come in here, let's see. Oh, am I in the, oh, this is the wrong library, sorry. This is the, and if we go stop that real quick. So if I go and select all of these clips, Option X, and transcode media, create proxy media. Instead of doing all that, Final Cut is basically now going to bring all of these proxy clips back online and go back to the relink proxy files. So now I can immediately pop into proxy mode, and for instance, if I did it with these scenes, I can now immediately be back in, and actually I'll just do it across here. And now we're popped back up, and I am, we'll give this a couple seconds. All right, and these are going to pop up in a minute. Oh, in fact, actually, in some cases, there may be one or two that don't pop on here. If we go, oh yeah, there it goes. Okay, so basically now I can be in multicam working from my native red raw files to relink proxies that I'm doing directly off network attached storage on the share station, and I can relink and do all of these things, and like basically, and I can even move these to other drives and relink to those there. So the reality of this is that here's your workflow. You come in, you import your R3Ds to on one computer. It can be a laptop, whatever it is, over 10 gig Ethernet. You put this up on the server. Meanwhile, you're building your edit project, you're going. You can even be transcoding these clips on a third computer in the background. At a certain point, you're going to have a red raw library ready to go. You've got your multicams made. Once the transcodes are done, you can go and relink to these proxies that have been just made, as long as they're in the correct media directory. You can even be ingesting all of your footage in Final Cut 10 using hard links going to the same place. And basically, you can be working with multiple computers on set, working from native red raw that is linked to all these files. And if I go in here, I can do Control Option S. And if you see, I've got, and I go into the timeline index and go under the roles tab, you can see that I've got all these dialogues named after all of my characters. And this was done automatically. I never had to do any prep for this whatsoever. All I had to do was talk to my sound guy in advance. And if I come up here, there's a few tips I can give you guys, which is if I open up this, I've got a smart collection called Search. So instead of making a different type of smart collection for every single thing that you do, what you can do is you can add different types of search to this. And like, so for instance, I just went and added everything to one of these as it is. So why would I want to have different smart collections for everything when I can have every type of smart collection in a single smart collection? And I just always use search. So if I want to use search based on role, so we'll deselect these here. And we'll go synchronize dragon and turn off keywords here. And now I want to see everything that has dialogue in there. Oh, what else do I have on here? So now it brings up everything that has a dialogue role on it, right? And from there, I can go and uncheck some of these. I can go in and go into my keywords. And if you see here, I've done this in a certain way where you can have C-Alex, Chatter, all of these people. These are different characters throughout. And I put a C there so that in the keyword finder, I can go and find anything that has the character of Chaz in it, kind of at the click of a button here. And all of my characters are in the same place, the same way that all of my locations would be in the same place. So for instance, if I wanted to bring up, or I have shot type, right? So I have shot type as, and we won't use Chaz, we'll use, let's see. I think Pete's got more. No, we'll do Sarah. And what other things are, I think I have stuff that's still checked here. But the reality is I can search pretty much based on anything at this point. And if I go in here, and I'm not going to have roles on. Okay, so now I'm searching based on keywords, and I've got everything from Sarah up here, and now I want to see everything that is a medium shot of Sarah. So now I'm going, there's no medium shots, how about medium close-up? So now I've got medium close-ups here, and that's at a click of a button. And actually, you know what, I don't have all of my proxies transcoded, so I'm going to go back into original mode. But this basically, with one smart collection, I can literally find anything. And it's just a question of turning it on and off. And a lot of times, I will keep my events on a second display, and I'm going to keep this open, and I can just go and find whatever I need, especially as you make a behind the scenes or anything like this. All of this stuff comes at the tip of the finger. And the reason that this all works is because of two apps, more or less. So if you're doing narrative, what I really recommend you do is have these two apps. One is ShotNotes X. So basically what would happen is I would take I have a folder here called ShotNotes, and these are actual CSVs that were made on the day of the shoot, right? So this was made by the wardrobe person. And basically, I brought in, you know, I had certain keyword collections that were going to come in, such as 2398, the resolution, the frame size, all of this stuff then immediately is going to become searchable as it's going to get applied to those clips. It's also going to keyword automatically based on the character that's in there. And by the way, if you have your keyword naming schemes, you can always rename these keywords once they're in your project. So you can put the C in front of all that stuff, which is basically what I did. And also the type of shot. So I have a wide shot, profile shot, all these different things. And this is all immediately, whether it's interior, exterior, the name of the location, etc. And also this is going to be searchable because I'm putting a lot of this stuff into the notes field as well. I've also labeled whether these are circle takes, whether a boom shot has entered, and that's going to get filed in the Note 2 section. And additionally, scene and take are getting entered along the way, so it's going to get named according to scene and take, etc. And this is all happening on set, and it's all happening because they're basically keeping track of the clip name that's on there, which, by the way, can always be updated later by importing an XML and copying and pasting all the clip names to match the metadata. So there's a lot of ways to error correct this. You don't have to do this perfect. You can always revise and update your XML accordingly. Anyway, when you're done, you're going to export a CSV out of Numbers or Google Docs, and you're just going to drag it into ShotNotes. Then you're going to come and you're going to take an XML of your day one clips, which if I go into the assistant editor side of things, this is all the shots from day one. Notice I've got, you know, the audio here, and if I show the channel configuration, this is not here yet. If you notice, I don't see the component names yet, which is where Sync and Link comes in. So now, if I open up Sync and Link, basically I can open an XML that came in, which was this day one XML here, and you know, I'll just go ahead and do it, even though I'm not going to do this for this demo. And we go ShotNotes, XML, and we'll just use day one. And if you notice, I have 3 XMLs that are actually in here, which is day one dash ShotNotes. So ShotNotes is going to make a ShotNotes XML that's going to update, and it's going to put all of that metadata. And then there's day one dash ShotNotes dash synced, which is the XML that Sync and Link is going to make. And if I go and click cancel here, Oh, I should have just selected it. So I'm going to bring in day one here. It's going to open up. And yeah, it's missing media files because I did this from another server, so it's looking for an old XML. But the bottom line is I'm going to select no trim. And there's a couple little really interesting buttons that'll be on once the XML is imported here, which is also make multicams. So that's going to go and automatically make multicams of your synced clips, and which becomes incredibly useful. It's also going to use track names from the audio IXML for subrole names, and this is the key one. So basically, and it's going to use subrole names for audio component names, so that when everything comes back in to a, let's see here, oh, are these not, all right. So that once you've moved all of that stuff in there, you're gonna end up getting something that looks like this. Which now, if you notice, I have names applied, I have roles in my timeline, which is all of this happened, but I have the Boom, Second, Bryn, and Terrence, they're all talking. So I know exactly what names are on, and I can now go and cut these into my timeline. Another useful trick for you guys, if you go into list view and you want to immediately turn off all of your, you want to go and disable camera audio across all of your different clips. One thing I recommend you do, and Mark Bach, if you're out there, you're not here today, but I stole this from you. Basically, if you go to audio, I think is it configuration? Let's see. And you sort accordingly, I can now select all of these clips and, oh, hold up. Let's see. Oh, right. I can select across, where is it? There's, you have to do it across the single audio configuration. Hold on, let me just make sure actually. Hold on. Yeah, okay. So they need to be like audio configurations here. But the best way to do that is accordingly, and then you can go and shift-click across and enable and disable the camera audio so that when you now edit them into the timeline, the camera audio is going to be turned off. So I recommend you do as much prep as humanly possible before you get your clips into the timeline so that when you, because a key thing to Final Cut to keep in mind as well is your clips are going to appear in the timeline configured however you have edited them. Once they're in the timeline, even if you make changes to a clip in the browser, those changes are not going to appear in the timeline. So if you've left your camera audio on in a clip and you've cut it in, and you go and then turn the audio off in the browser on that clip, the camera audio is still going to be present in the clip you already edited into the timeline. So if you go and prep all of your audio and do all of your prep in advance, then it's all going to cut exactly the way you want it to cut into your timeline. So the bottom line is a little work up at the top is going to save you just an incredible amount of time as you go through your edit. And then what ends up happening is now I'm working with my original camera raw with my original audio that has all of the roles I'd ever want on it in there so that when I go and deliver to my sound designer, he's going to be fine or she's going to be fine. And if I go to my colorist, I'm going to be working from my originals. So not only can I go and modify my red raw directly in Red Cine X ahead of time, which is what I did, and that's going to automatically update in Final Cut 10, but when I go to Resolve, for instance, it's going to go and I'm not going to have to play the crazy relink dance and, you know, I'm just going to bring the sequence in and everything's going to appear the way that I want it to. And this is the way that it should be because my decisions should be spent making decisions about my story and not about resolution, what codec I'm using, any of this stuff. This is offline, online, finish, move on to the next project. So, does anybody have any questions?
Sync and link. Hang on a second. Sync and link will not work unless your production use jam sync cameras, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, that is a key thing to keep in mind.
It has to be jam synced or it's completely useless.
Has to be jam synced. So basically, you're going to want to, yeah, you have to use jam sync. There is also an offset in there, by the way, that you can, if you find that there's a little bit of a drift or something, you can use an offset in there. Additionally, if there is an offset going into the multicams, you can usually just nudge the audio a couple frames. The multicams are really flexible in Final Cut as well if there are any issues. But yeah, I really recommend for narrative that you do use JamSync timecode. Oh, one other thing actually before we go, and I forgot to show you the whole dailies thing. So here is the best way to make dailies. So the cool thing is using a combination of shot notes and batch renaming in some cases, etc., is going to give you correctly named clips without having to go type anything in. So the coolest thing that then ends up happening is you can end up doing something like this. If you want to make dailies for your producers, you go bring those in. What am I missing here? Oh, is this core melt free? It should be here. Oh, did I not install it? I think I just downloaded it. All right. So there is a source timecode plugin from CoreMelt. So here's the way that I recommend you make dailies without losing any of your day on unnecessary timecodes. Is from a secondary system, open up your assistant editor bin, install, and actually, you know what I can do? You know, I don't even really need to show you this. The bottom line is I put the CoreMelt source timecode filter on these. I'm just going to go group select these, go under video effects, delete the source timecode effect, right? So let's pretend that I had already installed that. And basically, all I've done here is I've taken scene 5, and you know what? I'm going to go and delete this. I'll show you the exact process for doing this. It becomes a really straightforward way to make dailies and get that aspect of your life. And the nicest thing about this is you've already done the work and you're going to get to use all of these clips in your edit later. So I'm just going to do Command A, and the nice thing about Sync and Link is it's going to make synchronized and multicam clips if you do this in a certain way. So what you can do is the first thing I recommend you do is go in here and just flip this over to clip names. And now, if I zoom in, you're going to see which clip is on. So I have multicam clips here, which are not as useful because I already have synchronized clips that basically are going to do the job. If you only have multicam clips, just select each of the multicam clips in here, and you can tell by their you know, in the timeline index. Do Command 2, Command C, and do Command V here, and then just figure out where you started and just do Option 2 across each of these. And that's going to basically switch the angle to the second angle. And now I have dailies across all my multicams. And that's every clip that was then shot. And they're also named exactly the way I want them to be named when they go up into the cloud.
I don't know if everyone got the angle things. I mean, I get it, but
Oh, all right.
I want to slow that down for.
Okay, so here's the deal. If you do Option 2, it's going to switch the video angle that's in that you're looking at. So basically, when I put the multicams into the sequence, I'm going to see camera 1 by default. By pushing Option 2, it's going to bring me over to angle 2. So if you use your skimmer, you can push Option 2 over each of your multicams to make sure that you've got a secondary angle up. So now I've quickly gotten in all of my clips. They're named in a certain way. And I can now, well, in this case, I will undo all of that, because instead what I'm going to do is, after pushing E to put all of these in, I'm actually, because I have the synchronized clips here anyway that have the audio the way I want it configured, I'm just going to do Command 2 to go into the timeline again, push delete, and now I have all of my clips. And what I recommend you do is map G and H to your skimmer, and that's trim start and trim end. And if you match that to the, if you match trim start to the G key and trim end to the H key, which I haven't done on this computer, I could literally hover to the spot where the black ends and I see a slate, push the G key, and it's going to go and lop off the beginning of the clip. So I'm starting with the slate frame so I can see that as the thumbnail. But instead, I'm just going to do that. Let's pretend that I've done that for all of the clips here. At the end of that, I'm going to go, and there's going to be a CoreMelt free plugin area here where I could grab the source timecode. I would slap that on to one clip and then paste attributes across the rest. So that's going to have source time code on all of these different clips. They're going to come into Final Cut, or they're going to get uploaded to Frame.io individually exactly the way that I want them done, because they're all going to get named as individual clips 5A_1 cam A synced, 5A cam B, etc. This is exactly how I want these to be labeled. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Scene 5 dailies timeline, I'm going to go in under Frame.io, H.264, go under Settings. Instead of H.264, I'm going to go instead and, where is it? And I'm going to do web hosting. And I'm going to select the smallest resolution possible. I'll hit Next. Then it's going to go and it's going to bring it into the Frame.io Final Cut 10 Helper app, which you should download from the App Store. I'm going to select Clips here. And I can leave these alone unless I just wanted to do, but for dailies, I've already got everything I want in my timeline. And now I'm going to select Off the Grid, which is the name of our pilot. And then I'm going to spoil the fun for you, and now we're going to come into Frame.io. And I've made little folders here. So this is Scene 5 already uploaded with all the clips that were shot that day with source time code burned in, the name of the file, etc. Dailies are done from my originals. By the way, be in proxy mode, and this is going to be a far faster transcode process. Dailies, done. What do I need all these other things for? Yeah.
Do you ever experiment with, have you experimented with like finding a way to streamline putting the multicam out with the multiple screens? That way when people are looking down and talking about footage, they can see all the cameras at once?
Say that again?
So in other words, like output a multicam with all the different angles viewable to your client, so so people you're collaborating with, so you can look at, the whole thing at once rather than have to watch it 3 times. Like I think that would be cool to find a way to do that.
That actually would be. I have no idea how to do that.
I mean, I know. Well, there is an overlay.
Oh, really?
I've heard about overlay FX, right? Mm-hmm. And then it'd be a great way if there's get overlay an effect that just took all the angles and I don't know. It's a nice. What were you saying, Mike?
4 layers, and then stack them and export it that way.
Yeah, and then you have to pre-make your effects to do that. But it'd be great to streamline that because I work with all multicams for all our interviews, and we have like a lot of it.
You could use them as versions in Frame.io too. You can put 2 files on top of each other and compare them side by side.
Oh, can you?
Oh, really?
I didn't even know it. So I could take, for instance, wait, let's do that right now. So how do I do it? So I could just do that?
I think within a folder.
Double click on it.
Oh, yeah.
Version up top center.
Yeah,
wait.
it says version 2.
The top center.
Top center?
Compare versions.
Okay, so this is, so hold on.
Click on that again and go to compare versions.
Where it has the 2 grade.
Wait, where is it?
Right in the middle. Go back to where you were.
Middle top, but you just
Oh, okay.
Compare versions side by side.
And then you can mute the audio.
Okay, well, problem solved. There it is.
If you're using Frame.io.
Okay,
I
so
have a
this
question.
is, okay, that's awesome. Thanks, guys.
When can we get our hands on the Jellyfish? How much does it cost?
Now, starting from $7,500, well, actually, realistically, NAB will be when basically it's 3 to 5 week lead time. 24 terabyte version starts from $7,500, but we have you can get up to 48 terabytes in it. So basically, if you guys are interested, come reach out, sam@lumaforge.com. The reality is onset post, Final Cut 10, we're playing back Red Raw here. You can do up to 4 streams of XQ over 10 gig right off of Quad HD XQ ProRes, right off the Jellyfish, 800 to 1,000 megabytes a second, depending on your computer. And the reality is there are very few limits left in post-production, so don't let the tech and the resolutions and all of this other stuff get in the way of you guys telling the story you want to tell.
And if someone was in the market for a personal RAID system of 24 terabytes, instead of just buying a standard RAID, they could purchase the Jellyfish, use it as a personal RAID, but then also be able to use it as shared storage?
Yeah.
Or is it just something that's
No,
exclusive to only
You can do
being on set with another editor?
No. I mean, you could bring this and run this out of your facility, or if you need something larger, we have an Indie or we have rack-mounted studio or enterprise storage as well. But the reality is that, and it all runs Final Cut 10, and you can do more off the bigger models because there's more bandwidth. But standard with the Jellyfish is two 10 gig connections as well as 4 gigabits. So 6 clients right off the bat, 1,600 megabytes a second real world read across your multiple machines. And from there, you can actually, if you wanted to, do up to 12 gigabit connections and 12 users direct off the back. And you can do up to 24 off our Indie model, which is basically double the size. And you can do up to 160 terabytes off the Indie, I think. So there's basically, you have a lot of options in this day and age. And really, it's more a question of what you want to do than like, is it possible? Any other questions, guys? So I'm running late, but seriously, come talk to me, guys. Also follow up, Sam at FCP Works, Sam at LumaForge, and where's Moritz? Do we have Moritz? Yeah. There he is. Okay. So, and there's going to be more to come on the off-the-grid stuff, guys, but the reality is that you can do this. If you knew how much this pilot costs for what we're actually doing versus what other people do, it's kind of laughable. So it's not about the money anymore. It's about whether you know your tools.